Hello and welcome back to Visiting Dugout. I'm Chrystal O'Keefe, and today's special guest, we have Jason on to talk about the Rays. Jason, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. So Jason Collette and I have been a Rays fan for as long as they've been around, and so but also do writing at RotoWire, do podcasting at FanGraphs over the years, and then contribute at the D Rays Bay community over in SB Nation. So a lot of Rays knowledge, and been there for the lows of the lows and the highs of the highs. So it's been fun.
Understood. So, starting off, what is new with the Rays this season?
The stadium for one. I mean, that's definitely been a big curveball with play after all those years under a roof. You know, as a kid, grew up in Houston, so I had the Astrodome because I'm that old. But I had the Astrodome, and then I moved to Florida when the Rays, obviously, Tropicana had up until this season have been the only place. So it's been a bit of a different style of baseball. You know, the pitchers don't have that dome field advantage anymore, and seen a few more home runs allowed by the pitching staff, but I've also seen more hit by the by the offense, which has been nice to see because there were a lot of low scoring games in Tropicana. So that really has been the biggest change to the way the games have played this year. And seen some big games, seen some very close games. Another close one happening today, right now as we record. So it's been different, but I haven't been to a live game yet. I really don't want to go to Florida. I moved away 11 years ago. I just don't do heat, uh, so I don't want to go down. But it is my friends who have gone, who still live in the area, have gone to the game. Say it's been enjoyable despite the heat. The atmosphere of a nice intimate ballpark.
Yeah, that's been interesting to watch because you see it now with the A's, with their minor league ballpark,
Right.
and poor Rays have dealt with a new park. So I've always just wondered how they've adjusted to that. Doesn't seem like the A's are adjusting very well. There
Yeah,
seems
the Rays got a better deal in that regard because the Steinbrenner is one of the nicest minor league parks, and the Sacramento one, like I saw an ejection, somebody got ejected last week, and the manager had to walk all the way across the field to go out the left field tunnel to get to it. It's like, yeah, a little rough.
I was hearing from other people that have been to the Sacramento field and they're like there's not even like a spot for camera wells. It's just so awkward. You can
Weird.
barely like record game like film games in there. It's like I can't imagine what that would even be like, but hey, I'm glad the Rays are at least faring well in this deal.
Yes.
So, we'll go back first to the off season and then we'll kind of spring forward since we're really just days away from a trade deadline.
Hmm.
Was there anything the Rays did in the offseason that you felt was great, or was there room for improvement? And then, kind of same goes, like, what are you expecting from the trade deadline?
Well, addressing the catching situation, Danny Jansen, it was a nice addition for the catching situation. It's long been a kind of a soft spot on the roster. He homered again today so far, and I ideally had gone into the offseason wanting Carson Kelly. And he went to the Cubs and got off to a super start, cooled off and leveled off a little bit, but defensively, I thought he was the better one. But he ended up with Chicago. Good for him. And so, coming into the deadline, what I'd like to see the Rays do is try to address the pitching situation. They started the second one. They started with Ben Rortvedt. That didn't work out too well. They acquired Matt Tice from the White Sox. It's been an upgrade from Ben Rortvedt, but not much. So, we'll see where that goes. But honestly, it would be good if they could do something about adding a bat that could handle lefties because the Rays still have an issue when they're facing lefty starting pitching and bullpen. That's really been two weaknesses on the roster that have been magnified here as they hit a bit of a cool stretch in the schedule right before the break. They had a great stretch in June, then they really hit the skids as they are often do right before the All-Star break for whatever reason, and some of those weaknesses were exposed. And it'd be nice to see them make some moves to address those situations here over the next 2 weeks.
So, as far as the season goes, how are you feeling about the Rays? And do you feel like there's any wiggle room in this division? Because you're, I mean, we'll ignore the Orioles. They're a kind of a hot mess right now, but like
Yeah.
the rest of that division seems fairly close. It seems fairly within reach. So do you feel like there is a chance to move up any?
So honestly, the most realistic expectations would be looking at getting into the playoffs rather than trying to secure the division. I mean, they are currently 5.5 games behind Toronto as play begins today. And honestly, Toronto is something I can't explain. Everybody always goes to a hot streak and a cold streak, and it depends how cold your colds and how hot your hots are, right? So the Rays had a great hot streak before this ice cold streak, but the problem with them is their ice cold streak was at the same time the Jays got incredibly hot. So there was a series right around Memorial Day, I believe it was. Toronto came down to Tampa. The Rays swept them over 3 games, outscored them 17-2, and since then Toronto's been the best team in baseball. Something woke them up in that series, and they've been unbelievable. And you look at the lineup, you look at Toronto, you're like, how are they doing this? It's mostly the same lineup that underperformed last year, but their stars are performing like stars right now. But their role players are also performing like stars, and they're making the most out of those platoons. So they're fun to watch. I mean, when they're not playing my favorite team, they're fun to watch, and they're doing it again today against the Giants with some situations. But the Yankees had a very hot streak, and then they got ice cold. The Red Sox were extremely hot heading into the All-Star break. And my godson, I was texting him over that after he of course had to text me because he's a huge Red Sox fan when they swept the Rays. And he's like, and I was like, worst thing that could happen to you guys is going into the break because you have all that momentum and now you're sitting around for 5 days. And then, they've had this tough series against Chicago that has really cooled them off a little bit, but everybody gets hot. And it's a matter of how you can sustain your cold streaks. And that's what's going to eventually come back to Toronto, what's going to come up for Boston. And because honestly, heading into the season, I thought this division would be tight. It certainly played out that way, but I didn't expect Baltimore to be dead last and be this bad. But they've had a lot of injuries, and starting pitching's been all over the place, and now they're getting ready to dismantle the whole team. So they have a lot of guys on expiring contracts that are likely to find new homes here in the next 10 to 14 days.
The whole Baltimore situation has just been crazy to watch that downfall. That is not something I predicted, that's for sure.
Yeah. Indeed. I mean, there's too much young. It's a shame because there's so much young talent on the core of that team. And at the end of the season, it's just, they're going to be a sub 500 team because when they put their pieces together, they got attached to too many of their prospects, and they have all that prospect depth. And instead of moving them for pieces to improve the major league club, it's like, no, I'm going to hold on to Kobe Mayo, and I'm going to hold on to Heston Kierstead, and I'm going to keep all these guys. And it's like, and they may look back on this era later and be like, man, why didn't we try to maximize this window of when we had Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Colton Cowser, and they had all these pieces, and they instead tried to hold on to these prospects, and they may not have anything to show for it except for a nice two-year stretch of a lot of wins and nothing in the playoffs to show for it.
Yeah, brutal. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we can get into what this series might look like. All right, welcome back. So let's start off with some pitching matchups. Let's see, we've got first game is Sean Burke and Shane Baz.
Mm-hmm.
Then no idea for game 2 on the White Sox, but it is Rasmussen. And then last game, Jonathan Cannon, and we've got Bradley. So what can you tell me about this Rays rotation right now?
So it's been a bit interesting. Shane Baz each of them went through a stretch in early June where they were looking to add new pitches. And Shane Baz got rid of a slider that was just really hanging out over the plate and getting crushed. And so he's made some adjustments to his repertoire, and he's come out better for it. He's looked better now than he looked earlier in the season. Taj Bradley did some similar things, and his outing on Friday against Baltimore was fantastic. Best he's probably looked all season. And then Rasmussen was pitching well, made the All-Star team, but then they started managing his workload right there heading into the break. But most recent news is Rasmussen will resume his starting pitcher workload here coming out of the break. So I guess it was let's take advantage of a 3-week window and kind of reduce some things, because for a while he was pitching kind of like an opener, 3 to 4 innings, and then Joe Boyle would come in, but then Joe Boyle pitched 2 innings of relief on Friday. And it looks like Boyle's going to be working out of the pen, but the team has said Rasmussen will resume his starting pitching load. But that's really, and with him, he's very efficient. He doesn't waste a lot of pitches, and that's really where that's what they need because like I said earlier, the bullpen's been a big weakness for the club here over the past month. And if Rasmussen can't go deep in the games and Joe Boyle's not available that particular day, then it becomes okay. Who can we throw in here to get some work done? So the rotation's pitched really well. The offense has done its job, but the bullpen is the problem at the moment. And the fact that the White Sox don't have a lefty helps the Rays offensively because that's where they've had their struggles is when the lefties are in and they have to sit Josh Lowe and they have to sit Brandon Lau. And it's the weaker platoon matchup for some of the switch hitters too.
So it's funny, the White Sox, we're not quite at game three yet in Pittsburgh. It starts in about 5 minutes as we're recording. They just scored 20 runs on the Pirates in 2 games, which is not something I'm used to. Happy about it, thrilled.
Sure.
Um, and again, this was, starting pitcher, and then they came back, I think it was the sixth inning and scored 6 runs. So, do you have any concerns with this random pop of offense from the White Sox lately?
Sure. I mean, baseball's full of randomness, and Pittsburgh, honestly, for a while there, had been one of the better pitching teams in baseball,
Yeah.
too. So for the White Sox to put up a 20 spot on them, and you see this happen like the Angels, similar type of build that there's talent there. I've seen a lot of the White Sox roster. I live in Charlotte, and so the Triple A Knights are here, and I'll be seeing them play in a couple hours here today against Durham. So these things can happen and really matchup dependent. Like I know Luis Robert Jr.'s been playing really well. There's a lot of talk about him possibly being traded, and he's been excellent against lefties this season. Thankfully the Rays are throwing all righties, and it'll be something interesting to watch if they bring in a Garrett Clevenger type of situation with that. But when the White Sox have had the issues they've had over the years, and they've been able to make these acquisitions either via trade or via the draft and get some of this talent. There's a reason why they got guys like Teal and Mydroth and everybody else and Cuero. You have the ability to hit. These guys can hit. It's just a matter of can they do it consistently in situations. So yeah, the Pirates. Like I said, it can happen. It can happen to anybody. We've seen the Dodgers have some bad games against some folks too. So yeah, I'm worried anytime a Rays reliever's coming out on the mound right now these days because we have. It's been a while since I've watched the team go out there and really have a clean like here comes the A bullpen and here's 6, 7, 8, 9 and it just works. I'm honestly struggling to think of a game where that's all worked without me going, oh boy. Like even the last night. 2-run lead, Fairbanks comes in, somebody doesn't make a play, and then somebody scores, and then they were able to hang on last night and win the game. But it's been a while since I've just been able to sit back and relax in my recliner and watch a game without worrying about it.
Right. No, I completely understand. That's why I was stunned at the game yesterday and kind of paying attention to the game as I was heading into Pittsburgh. I was like, who is this team? What happened? Is this what the White Sox are going to be after the All-Star break? Because if so, we're so back. Let's plan that parade.
It's always fun when you get to go watch your team play on the road and they have a huge game like that. Those are always fun.
It's so
Uh,
and they were competitive against. I mean, they got swept, but they were competitive against the Dodgers, and that's all I can ask for
right.
in life, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you don't want to get embarrassed. I remember one year, I took my son up to Baltimore when the Rays were playing there. This was when Baltimore was bad, and the Rays put a big hurting on him. I'm like, that's always fun. You go and show up, and it's like, okay, cool, this was fun. I got to see my team score a lot of runs. But being on the opposite, like there was that game earlier this year where the Rays were up 8-0 and lost 22-8, or 6-0 and lost 22-8. Like I would never want to be at a game like that.
Well, I was talking to somebody at the game last night. The Pirates fans got a little too cocky a little too soon, and it was like 4-2, and the Pirates were up and they were heckling the White Sox, and then moments later hits started happening and runs started coming in, and the Pirates kind of just crumbled, and I was like, and it was Yinzer Palooza
Oh
this
boy.
weekend in Pittsburgh. So it was crazy. Yesterday it was the Mac Miller day, so we waited in the heat to even just get in because the lines were so crazy. And I was talking to someone who was like, don't feel bad if you get swept this weekend because the White Sox just got swept for their like 2005 reunion weekend. We
Oh
got
yeah.
destroyed by Cleveland the whole series. So
Yeah.
don't feel bad that you're losing on a special weekend. We get it as White Sox fans. We're in
Did
this
I hear correctly that they broke out a "sell the team" chant yesterday at the game?
a couple times, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I joined in because another sell the team girl. There was even a um like a plane that was flying with a little message to Bob saying sell the team and that he's useless. And I was like, you know what? Good for
I
you
would
guys.
agree.
White Sox fans, we put up two billboards. They've got like planes flying over PNC Park with this message. So I love it. I support it.
That's a shame. Was that your first time at PNC Park?
No, no, that's one of my favorites. I
Yeah, it's
I try
great.
to go there as often as possible.
It is nice.
So so back to this series. Who do you feel like could be the biggest threat to the White Sox on the Rays right now?
Probably Yandy Díaz. I mean, he is the hottest hitter on the team, and he went through a little bit of a rush stretch. The crazy part is when the club was doing really well, he wasn't, and now that they're not doing that well overall, he's been on fire. And he's kind of he's the table setter. Really, it's kind of odd because he doesn't lead off or anything, but he makes the offense go. Chandler Simpson's been hitting leadoff lately, and really doing a good job of getting on base, making contact, and being disruptive on the base pass. And he gets on, and then Yandy's ability to hit the ball to all fields and make a lot of contact, it can make things move. So yeah, I would start with those two guys, especially with I know that the catching situation is. I was looking at things earlier, and the catching situation with the White Sox has been right about league average. It hasn't been like the Marlins are far and away the worst team in baseball in controlling the running game. You get in there, and anybody can run on them. But between Kyle Teal and Cuero, they have done a decent job of managing the running game. So otherwise, I would say like Chandler Simpson and Taylor Walls and Jose Caballero could just go running like crazy because that's what they do when they get on base. And Kevin Cash is and even Josh Lowe too. Kevin Cash is very aggressive with the running game, so that'll be something to watch. If the pitchers do put guys on base, that's what Cash likes to do is press the issue and put folks in motion. Like I said, the fact that it looks like it's going to be all righties unless the White Sox find a lefty to put in there for that second game. As you said, you don't know who's going to pitch yet. It's going to be the stronger side of the lineup.
So that kind of ties into the next question with what are the keys for the Rays to take this series? And you mentioned they are very aggressive with their base running, but is there anything else that they could do to really kind of seal a series win?
Honestly, controlling the running game itself, it's been a bit of a weakness. And when games where Tice has had to start behind the plate, the opposition has taken advantage of that because he does not control the running game as well as Danny Jansen does. Obviously, controlling the running game is as much on the pitcher as it is on the catcher. That said, even with the same pitchers, it's just not the same when Tice is behind the plate. And honestly, it's the bullpen. It comes down. That's where the Rays have left games on the table is underperformance by the bullpen. So the starters have to give them the depth, have to give them the 6 innings. And when the bullpens, it's a big difference between when a bullpen's asked to get 9 outs versus 12 outs. Those extra 3 outs put a lot more variability into play. And if Cash can roll out the A pen, you don't want all 3 games to be close on either side, but if you can roll out the A pen in 2 of those 3 games and then just roll out any pen in one of those other games, it makes it easy. But if it's all late and close and you got to go 7-8-9, 7-8-9, you really want to avoid having to go to the bullpen in the 6th inning because that's when they've had their issues.
Mm-hmm. With that, and we've kind of mentioned the fears already, especially with the bullpen, but what are your kind of primary fears just heading into this series?
Primary fears heading to the series, honestly, is how well the Rays can do against the White Sox bullpen because the White Sox bullpen has been performing well. Grant Taylor's looked good in the situation in different pieces. Maybe it's a Mike Fassel revenge game, because the Rays did draft him as a Rule 5 guy. And I bring this up because Alex Jackson hit a home run off the Rays today, and he was on the club last year, and Rays cut him. So it's always the revenge game factor. But in all seriousness, the White Sox bullpen has pitched well here over the last month. And that's where if the games are late and close, what can the Rays do against those types of bullpen situations? They have been pretty good. Again, if they get guys on, like last night, they were down in that game 2-1, and then were able to score 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th. with really on 2 hits. It was a couple of walks, a throwing error, and some aggressive base running that put that into play. So how will they be able to do against a variety of arm angles and velocities that come out of the White Sox bullpen? But I would like to stay away from Taylor as much as possible. I was impressed with what I saw from him in spring training before the season started. And I know with Taylor and Smith and Noah Schultz, there was that trio of guys coming up, and Schultz hasn't been as good. I've seen Schultz pitch a couple of times here. Living in North Carolina, I get to see a lot of White Sox prospects. So, 3 of the clubs are here. So I've seen Schultz pitch a few times. It's crazy. I saw him in Kannapolis for the first time, his first outing. I was like, wow, this guy. But with Taylor, he has followed up very well off what he looked like in March during spring training, and that's nice to see.
When you do go tonight, please tell Tim Elko that I miss him dearly. His dad actually follows me on Twitter. Not that I really use Twitter.
Uh-huh.
I happen to post my birthday card on there. That my husband is an artist, and he makes these incredible cards. And this year it was like a White Sox Snoopy collab. And Tim
Nice.
Elko was on the card, and his dad saw it, followed me, and retweeted it. So I'm hoping Tim Elko in turn has seen this birthday card and knows that I miss him.
I know he was hurt. Is he on a rehab?
He,
I don't remember, because I saw Elko play at Kannapolis. I saw him play with the Knights here last year, and a little bit this year before his first call up. And
yeah, he'll come up on occasion, and then he just gets sent right back down, and there's no really rhyme or reason for it.
yeah,
Just, poor front office moves.
I've
On the
always
White
I've
Sox.
always been impressed. I've always liked his hitting style. Like I said, I saw him at a bunch with Kannapolis. Saw him a few times with the Knights before he went. And yeah, they don't have a lineup today. Garrett Clevenger, Mike Clevenger is pitching for the Knights today, but they don't have a lineup out for the who's playing for the Knights yet.
Well, if you see Tim, just let him know he's very missed. So, moving away from our respective teams, this is just where I like to kind of ask what you're seeing in baseball right now, what you love or hate, or any hot takes, or really anything. This is your time to
Sure.
shine.
I mean, I mentioned the Jays earlier. I love seeing what they did, because last year I actually had them as winning the American League overall, and I felt they so severely underperformed. And it's nice to see them overperforming this year. Baseball has a way of working out that way, and it's doing its thing. So that's fun. I enjoy what Cal Raleigh's doing with Seattle. It's amazing how he has continued to hit the home runs when the All-Star home run derby with his dad pitching to him. That's always a great story. But just Seattle, coming into the season, we were conditioned Seattle's just a poor place to hit. The offense doesn't perform, and then Seattle's out here doing it, and they're hanging. They're still within reach of the Astros, who I have no idea how the Astros are still in first place. They're like cockroaches. You can't kill them. They've been to the ALCS 7 straight years, and here they are without Yordan Alvarez, and they're currently missing Jeremy Pena, and they've had their pitching injuries, and they're still in first place. It's crazy what they're able to do. So the American League's been fun, and the Tigers just continuing to roll on. Maybe it's just like proximity, but 2 of my very good friends are Phillies and Mets fans, respectively. And all I see them do is complain about their teams. And then I look and like, you guys are a game and a half of each other and you're in first place, wah. But it's but how poorly the Braves have performed overall, that didn't expect. And then I remember there was a lot of noise about the Nationals before the season, like, oh, hey, don't sleep on this team. Well, they're asleep. They're 20 games below 500, and they have really underperformed, and things haven't gotten any better since they got rid of Davey Martinez. So that's kind of been curious. And then eventually, the one I can't figure out is Milwaukee. Milwaukee is they're a game behind the Cubs, and yet you look at just about every offensive indicator, baseball card stats, under the hood stats, and they're all terrible in their hitting. Yet they're one game out of the division lead, and they're 18 games over 500, despite an offense where you cannot figure out how they're doing it, but they're getting it done. So it's like the antithesis of the old early 80s Harvey's Wallbangers, where they just hit home runs and barely pitched. It's like now it's all pitching, and the hitting is just getting it done somehow. I don't want that bubble to burst, because it's fun when these kind of things happen. but I don't know how they've gotten almost 100 games in the season with this offense the way it is. And I just, with the West, honestly, I just think it's like the Dodgers just playing in cruise control until they have to wake up and do something.
Yeah, I would love the Dodgers to stay in cruise control and somehow blow that division. But that's just me being a Dodgers
Oh, that
hater.
would make for a fun story,
Yeah.
but somebody would have to wake up. And the Giants look like they were there, and then they've fallen back, and the Padres are trying, but something always happens to the Padres, upsets them back.
Yeah, yeah, always. The Giants are such a low scoring team. I talked about this when I did a Giants episode a while back, and we said this will just be a very low scoring series, and that's exactly what it is. There's no real offense there. So that's been interesting to see how they are still so high up with no offense.
It's a tough place to hit. The home ballpark, especially if you're a lefty. And Willie Adames, I know he had 2 home runs yesterday against Toronto. I was listening to that game driving home from Virginia with my daughter. But yeah, it's just a tough place to hit overall, and they don't have a lot of depth, and Adames is just now starting to hit with some of that power. So it's a tough place to hit. That's why they've struggled to sign free agents, and they signed Adames, and you've seen the change in how he hit with Milwaukee versus how he's hitting with the Giants.
Yeah. Not being romantic about it or whatever that is.
Yep.
That's what I've got for you. So thank you so much for joining. Will you please just let people know where they can find you?
Sure. So you can find me on Blue Sky at Jason Collette, and then I have a weekly column at RotoWire. It is subscription, but if you want to try it out, there's a 10-day free trial. I believe it's rotowire.com/blue radio free, any one of those. There's a 10-day free trial, no credit card needed. You can come see, but I'm obviously a fantasy tilt. And then on Sundays, I record the Sleeper in the Bus podcast from FanGraphs with Justin Mason, and try to help folks win their fantasy league. But Blue Sky's a lot of regular baseball, and if you're into fantasy baseball, I'm on RotoWire and FanGraphs and whatnot. But I am interactive either way, especially on Blue Sky. And once we get to postseason, it will be all baseball, and even when we get to year round. I don't stop. I love the off season. I love the hot stove, the winter leagues. I go to Arizona every year for First Pitch Arizona, sponsored by Baseball HQ, which is a great time to get to see a lot of those players in the Arizona Fall League before they become stars. And looking forward to doing that again. My daughter's actually going with me this year for her 18th birthday, so it'll be her exposure to that.
Is she big into baseball?
She loves sports. She wants to go to school to do sports journalism and media. And we just got back from the Washington Journalism and Media Conference in DC. So she was at George Mason University all week at that camp, and got to meet the folks that do the stuff for Monumental Sports Network that cover the Wizards and the Nationals and the Capitals. And so she's all excited about that. So yeah, she loves sports. She particularly loves hockey. That's her particular favorite. She knows a lot more than me. I like watching hockey for the sports enjoyment, and like I don't do any of the advanced stats like I do with baseball. Hockey is just pure. I just want to watch it. She knows all this other stuff, and so I learned from her in that regard. And baseball for her is just fun. She likes watching certain players. So that's how our yin and yang of our sports relationship works.
That's fun because my son is wanting to go into sports broadcasting, and his high school offers, they have like a career center as well,
Yeah,
where you can do a multitude of different things, but radio and broadcasting is one. And like they have their own radio station, and they have their YouTube channel where he
nice.
will go live, and he's covered all sorts of sports, and he's just now going into his sophomore year. But they have it set up to where they do like dual credits for different schools as well. And he's been very, very into the broadcast side of that. So it's like, well, you're just following mom some in some fashion is covering sports. So I love that
That's
they
cool.
both have that. That's amazing. And that you're
Yeah, my
fostering it.
nephew,
It's
my
the most
nephew is
important.
similar to your son. My nephew just graduated high school, but they had something similar at his high school, and he was able to. He decided, look, I don't have a playing future, but I love these sports, and so he got into the production future of it, and he started doing a lot of camera work and doing a lot of the highlight clips that the high school was sending out, and he's going to college to pursue that activity.
That's great. But That's amazing. That's the future of sports, and I love it. All
Yep.
right. Well, Jason, thank you again so much. Obviously, best of luck in this series. Should be interesting. Maybe the White Sox will be coming off a sweep. Fingers crossed.
Maybe the Rays will too, but they're down 3 currently to the Orioles because Ryan O'Hearn, the perpetual thorn in the Rays' side, just hit another home run. So it's 5-2. I need that
Understand.
guy off the Orioles. For the last 3 years, he has just been tortured at Tampa Bay.
I get it. I get it. All right. Well, thank you again. And again, best of luck.
Sure. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.